Should the Lions look to snag Malik Willis? Let's Talk Lions. Welcome back to an all-new episode here at Let's Talk Lions. My name is Jay. Thank you for hanging out. So the Senior Bowl is coming up, and the Detroit Lions will get to look at 3 quarterbacks. But before we get into it, I do just want to give a shout out to the brethren in Buffalo. I am very sorry about last night's game. That one still stings right now, and it is going to continue to sting for the rest of the offseason. So to all my friends, to everybody in Buffalo, I'm sorry for the way it ended. So let's go Cincinnati. Huge shout out to all of my Patreon subscribers. You guys are amazing. Thank you for supporting me. Also got a pretty nifty bandana. It's a D&D bandana. Pretty cool. So I figured we're going to support that on the show today. Shout out to Faith, who supports me in this channel. To Faith and hope and love. So I want to look at the 3 quarterbacks that the Lions are going to have the opportunity to hone in on, to really get to coach, get to watch, get that up-close personal look at the Senior Bowl. Those 3 guys are Malik Willis out of Liberty, you got Sam Howell out of North Carolina, and you've got Zappy? I don't know, out of Western Kentucky. So over the next couple days, we're going to look at each one of these guys and the opportunity that the Lions have coaching them, and maybe would they be a good fit here in Detroit? Because let's face it, the Lions have 2 first-round draft picks. We got number 2 overall this year, and wherever the LA Rams end up. And with that LA Rams spot, we very well could pick a quarterback. Now, we all know that we got Jared Goff going into this next year. He is our QB, but will the Lions look to grab a quarterback and begin developing them? For myself, I chose Malik Willis first because, to me, he is the best prospect of them all. Now, I know in Mel Kiper's earliest mock draft, he has Willis going to Washington at 11, and he actually has Detroit snagging Sam Howell late with the LA pick, I think at 28. That's all subject to change depending on where LA lands. Again, when I look at all these quarterbacks, we all know that this draft class, it's not a QB heavy selection. There is no QB that sticks out where you're like, Joe Burrow, I want you. You're the one. Like, no QB exists in that fashion. However, the one that is the most driving or the most enticing, in my opinion, is Malik Willis. Willis is 6'1", and he's about 220, 225 pounds. I watched him a few times this year, and I'm not going to lie, I was underwhelmed by his performance. However, you gotta look at who his supporting cast is, some of the guys that he's playing with, and how that affects his gameplay. Willis offers a ton of upsides that can be curated, can be cultivated, can really be grown. He has a lot of raw talent that can be developed to making him more. Right now, he is not a polished player. I mean, like I said, I watched him. I was underwhelmed. There was a lot that he was doing where he just seemed all over the place. He kind of was like a schizophrenic Tom and Jerry episode. I wasn't impressed. However, when you take a step back and you really begin to evaluate him, and you look at his body type, you look at his athleticism, his arm, there are a lot of upsides. Can that be developed? Sure, he's not polished now, but I got to ask you, was Josh Allen? Now, Josh Allen, you have all of these radio hosts, you have all these sports hosts that are sitting there, oh, Josh Allen, he's the prototype quarterback, he's the best. But where were you 4 years ago? 4 years ago, people were looking at him, and they're like, Buffalo Bills are idiots. I can't believe they drafted this kid. This kid sucks. He's got a huge arm, but he can't hit the broadside of a barn. You name it. There was so much Josh Allen hate just a few years ago. And where I understand it, because when he came into the league, he did struggle actually hitting his targets. He was strong. He was the type of guy who was never going to let a play die. He wouldn't slide, wouldn't throw it away. There were a lot of elements of Allen's gameplay that were just raw. And you see a very similar thing with Malik Willis. Malik Willis has a cannon for an arm, and he is incredibly athletic when on his feet. That dual threat, my friends, that is something that I want here in Detroit. I want a dual threat quarterback. Obviously, Jared Goff is not that. Matt Stafford was never that. Watching guys like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, the mobility, what they can do with their feet and their arms, man, I want that here in Detroit. Willis shows a lot of similar tendencies to Allen, to Jackson, that can't be ignored. Now, listen to me. Hear me out. I'm not saying, Malik Willis is the next Josh Allen. I'm not saying he is the next Lamar Jackson. I'm saying that there are a lot of tendencies that are similar, that you can kind of pull from that and say, all right, is that something that here in Detroit we would find success building around him? I just think that Willis is getting overlooked a little bit due to how raw he plays. Because, I mean, let's face it, he has made his fair share of mistakes. But again, I think if you are willing to take that risk, it could pay off in dividends, like in Monopoly. This year, Willis threw for 2,857 yards, and he rushed for 878 yards. That dual threat, that's everything. That's everything to me. He can throw the ball deep. Like I said, a cannon for an arm. He's able to fit the ball into tight spots. And again, yeah, he's sloppy. He threw for, I think, 12 interceptions. I mean, he has struggled, don't get me wrong. But it's a matter of saying, I think a team that is willing to take Willis and say, hey, we're going to develop alongside you. We're going to develop around you. We're going to risk it. 3-4 years, really risking, seeing where you're able to go. I mean, there is a team that will probably have this paid off in the future, or it could be a mega flop. I do wish that Willis was taller. He's 6'1", not bad, but quite frankly, when I look at QBs, I wish that he was at least 6'4", just a little bit bigger. He is a thicker bodied man. It's a weird way to say it. A lot of upsides to him if you're willing to take the risk. This is why I'm excited that the Lions get to coach the Senior Bowl. We get an up-close look at these quarterbacks, at Willis, at Howell, at all of these guys. Our coaches, they get to be up close and personal, really see, hey, does Willis have what it takes? Would he be a good fit here in Detroit? We can sit him his entire first year. He watches Goff play. You got the whole Boyle contract. I mean, he was only a 1-year contract, so now he takes that second spot. It's the type of thing where if Campbell, Holmes, the entire coaching staff can sit there with Willis and be like, this guy has a future here. We could build around him. This is the quarterback for the Lions. Man, I'm trusting Holmes and I'm trusting Campbell in that. The major issue with it all is, when will Willis actually be drafted? Because as we said, he's not a standout candidate. He's not somebody who's there who's like, hey, I'm top 5. I mean, Kuiper has him going at 11 to Washington. It's possible that he drops down even further to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Lions at the moment were with that second pick with LA. We're going to be 28 or further down. If Willis was to drop that far, that's when you could snag him. Again, at the moment, I do like Willis over Howell. We'll get into Howell another day. But that's where, looking at that second pick for us in the first round, if Willis goes early, I am not leaning towards a QB at that point at 28, 29, 30, wherever we end up. I would lean more towards a wide receiver, somebody dynamic to give to Jared Goff, to give to this offense. And what's tricky about the whole thing is, I look at our team, I look at our schedule, the coaching staff, all of it, and I look at next year. We will be a better team than where we were this year. We will not be drafting in the top 5 slots. I look at Detroit, we're probably going to be around the 12 spot would be my guess. And at that point, you're not getting a phenomenal quarterback if there's even one to be had. So we're kind of in a weird spot where maybe it's worth the Lions looking at one of these QBs in the late first round, early second round. I don't know. You tell me. How do you feel about Malik Willis? Does his dual threat combo interest you? Would he be somebody that you would want to bring to Detroit and develop over the course of time? Do you think that the Lions should look to snag him here in the draft? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I look forward to reading it, discussing it with you as always, and remember that the grass is always greener on the other side, like that Nickelodeon TV show we watched.